I can tell you, I was 13 years old and my doctor said, "You're fat like your family." That was the moment, right? That was the moment where I was like, excuse me, I'm a New Yorker, this asshole just made me wait in his office for 2 hours. He could have put a bike in here. He could have put a treadmill here. Instead, what he did was he put me on it, made me wait 2 hours, get on a scale, just to shame me and say, you got to lose weight.
We're bringing healthy back. Them other bros don't know about the facts. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Magic of Metabolic Health podcast. My name is Amelia, and I am your host today. We are here to optimize your metabolic health, and we're going to get you there. And today, we have a fabulous guest, Dr. Tro Kalayjian. Did I say it right?
You got it. You win.
Yes. Hi, Tro. How are you?
I'm good. It was nice chatting with you just a second ago and meeting you, and certainly met some of your family, and I'm excited to be here. Happy to be here. Excited for your new podcast.
Yeah.
And you've had some amazing guests, so super humbled and grateful to be here.
Yes. I'm glad that we finally made the time to meet up and talk to things. And so I'm going to introduce you. We've got a little bio here. Dr. Tro Kalayjian, founder and chief medical officer of Tord Health, is a board-certified physician in internal medicine and obesity medicine. He is a founding member of the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, and after losing 150 pounds by challenging conventional medical advice, Dr. Tro is now dedicated to helping others reclaim their health, reverse chronic disease, and reduce dependence on medications. His current practice specializes in treating type 2 diabetes and obesity through a personalized, lifestyle-based approach. Their published 6-month medical weight loss program delivers powerful results, with patients losing an average of 38 pounds and achieving substantial improvements in A1C, blood pressure, cardiac risk, and annual medication costs. Backed by 7 peer-reviewed publications, Dr. Tro's program emphasizes evidence-based metabolic health interventions that work. That's a nice bio.
Yeah, thanks. Some more studies since then, but it's been quite a journey. It's been quite a journey, fun journey, but a lot of hard work. We just published 2 studies this year. Super proud about that. It's been it's been fun. It's been fun.
Wow. Nice. Well, I want to get into all of that. First, what we kind of do here at the Magic of Metabolic Health is to get to know our guests and kind of their background. And we always ask a personal question first, which is, where did you grow up and what kind of food did you eat as a child?
Yeah, I grew up just outside of New York City in New York. 2 parents that came to this country with essentially nothing. And typical, sort of first generation. I was born here and born in a hospital down the block, Nyack Hospital. And I grew up eating a mix of what was considered normal food for the late 70s, early 80s, and 90s, and the mix of ethnic food that was sort of Americanized. And what I say by Americanized is, like we have ethnic cuisine, but nobody ever cooked with vegetable oil, but somehow all of our recipes have vegetable oil, right? Or nobody ever, these ancient recipes and ancient foods that we would eat never had margarine in them, but certainly, our foods did. And what did it look like? I mean, it would look like an ethnic sort of Middle Eastern cuisine, mixed with school lunches and, fast food when my parents couldn't cook, right? They had 3 kids, and so a lot of cereal boxes, croissants and muffins, and, skim milk in the fridge and orange juice and, whatever you'd consider like a normal American diet, quote unquote. We had school lunches, which were, everybody remembers the rectangular the pizzas, right, on Fridays, right, that tasted like cardboard. And then dinner was, usually some home cooked meal of some kind, something that was quick and easy, convenient. Maybe a protein and a vegetable, and a starch. Yeah, so that's where I grew up, and I went to high school outside of New York City. I went to college at Binghamton, then I finished up at Mercy, both in New York. Um, I went to med school in New York City, and then I did my residency just outside of New York City in a Yale affiliated internal medicine program at Greenwich Hospital in Connecticut, but a 30-minute train ride to New York City. So most of my life has been a straight up, New York City hard knock life. A lot of love in the home, but not without its, typical immigrant family traumas. But yeah, I did a bit of acting, and on
Really?
I did On the Town when I was in 10th grade, and then in 11th grade, what did I do? There was another one. I forget the name. I forget
Was it Bye
what
Bye Birdie?
no, I don't remember what it was.
Because I played the grandmother who was a thick New York accent, doesn't take nothing sort of archetype. It was really fun.
Yeah, yeah, I had fun. I mean, I just remember being 15 and, running track and being like, wait a second, I can run track and, meet girls, and I can go to, the theater and meet girls. I was like, I can double my pool of girls that I can meet. So, I mean, I was just a punk 15-year-old, but I had a lot of fun.
Well, I heard you say something about Middle Eastern food. And so I wonder if your family comes from an area that's considered uh, Mediterranean. And if so, would you consider the food that you ate part of the Mediterranean diet?
Um, yeah, so like a lot of cracked wheat, even our meat has cracked wheat in it and whole grains. A lot of whole grains, a lot of rice, a lot of pilaf, a lot of olives, a lot of, So yeah, it's in the Caucasus. It's a straight up Caucasus Mountain, area, but mixed with sort of a Syrian influence. We're Armenian, but my grandparents were from Syria. So yeah, it's like this weird combination, Mediterranean, Middle Eastern. We would eat tabbouleh often, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tabbouleh. A lot of pita bread, So yeah, I mean, it's a cross between Middle Eastern and Mediterranean, I'd say.
Well, because I know a little bit about you, I'm curious to just poke the bear. If you were raised on the Mediterranean diet, more or less, since it's actually a very vague thing. It's way overgeneralized and not specific. But did that Mediterranean esque diet work for you and your family?
No, I mean, yeah, you're definitely poking the bear. I mean, this is the trauma I grew up with. It's funny when I was 13 years old, I was 210 pounds, and I have a 13-year-old son now who's 110 pounds. Right, I was literally double his weight. Right, same gene pool. Right, but he is 100 pounds less heavy. So the thing is that no, the diet, which was a mix of a modernized, Middle Eastern diet and public school food and Kellogg's for breakfast, right? It was a disaster on my health, and it was a disaster on my family's health. My older brother, got up to, by the time he was 13, he was 100 pounds heavier than me. He was 300 pounds. He got up to 500 pounds. My younger brother also had significant weight issues, definitely reaching the 400s. So yeah, I mean, my family basically suffered at the hands of the food system, and my mom was very self-critical about it. I mean, she went to Weight Watchers. I remember being 8 years old, going to Weight Watchers. She was very hard on us and hard on herself. I remember her taking fen and like sewing, in the middle of the night, like being up because she's basically doing speed, you know, um, to try to manage her weight. I mean, it was awful. It ravaged us. I would consider it like one of the biggest harms we accept in the modern world. I'd imagine it's like, I'm a history guy. I like kind of searching through history. You hear about like the opium wars back in the 1800s, where Britain kind of went to China, wanted to open up trade with China. And then for the next 100 years, China faced these opium wars. That's what I feel like we're facing now in America. Our modern food is like this. It's just a modern toxic addiction that we all kind of just accept. It's normal to have Kellogg's for breakfast. It's normal to have Dunkin' Donuts. It's normal to have French fries and apple pie when you go to fast food. I mean, it's normal to have dessert every day. It's normal to have, sugary snacks. It's normal to go to the corner store and just get candy, but it's not normal. This is like a highly abnormal way of eating. It is new. It is not normal. It is not how we were probably designed to eat. And this idea that you brought up kind of beforehand, like this idea of moderation, it probably made sense if you go back 70 years. Like if you go back 70 years where ice cream was a periodic treat, like it would make sense to moderate something that you don't have already too often, that under a baseline of good food, right? But this idea of moderation in the modern world, it's a laughable joke. It's not something most people can attain. My kids who eat pretty well, they go to a swim club, and every swim meet has just a disastrous smorgasbord of food out. And this is what the parents are feeding their kids. I mean, this is completely community-based, family-based. We're doing it to ourselves. And we all think it's normal, but it's not. And Kellogg's, the CEO of Kellogg's, gets there on the TV on CNBC and says, "No, I want everybody to have cereal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like we're pushing cereal for dinner," which I understand. Like they want to make money. I understand, and they may think they're feeding the world, but I don't think anybody knows really what's going on. Which is we're just pushing an addictive substance on vulnerable people. And like that's the only way you can explain the modern obesity epidemic. Nobody wants to be obese. It's heavily shamed against. It comes with health complications, right? It's a huge stigma, right? And nobody wants to feel heavy like I did when I was 350 pounds. Heavy, every joint hurting, low energy, barely able to stay awake. Nobody wants to feel that way. So how is it that nobody, we literally stigmatize weight, right? It's like a moral failure in our population. It is unattractive to most people, right? And it has serious health implications. Nobody wants it, right? And yet everybody is gaining weight. We've gained 50 pounds in 5 decades. So if you look at this from a system-based thinking, you see it very clearly, and I know you do because you've worked with the great Joan Ifland. This is a epidemic of addiction, and we're dealing with an epidemic of addiction. It's a different, it's a behavioral and it's a behavioral and substance use issue that needs to be well thought through if you're going to tackle it meaningfully. And I'm going to pause here because I could talk forever. I do podcasts, but that's the long and the short. I'm from New York City, from a family who suffered, and between the cuisine that my parents knew how to cook and the modern food environment, we were just toast. We were done. We were metabolically stabbed, and yeah, we never. It was hard to. It's hard to recover.
Yeah, especially, man, I was just thinking about all these things while you were talking about, at such a young age when your body is giving you signs and signals that something's not right, but you could have been labeled as just unlucky genetically, right? I mean, I have friends in my life who were bigger from a very young age. And if they're, in their 30s, 40s, 50s now, and they still have that weight on there, it's a lot of the stories I hear is, well, I was just born this way. This is who I am. I've always been this way. I'm always going to be this way. And there's not really much I can do because I don't want to eat salad and celery for the rest of my life. That's the still the stereotype is, in order for you to be healthy, if you have a body like that, you just can't enjoy life anymore. If you just got to eat vegetables and water. And I continue to criticize that narrative. And actually, when I was interviewing Kevin from the documentary Animal recently, uh, I, I was talking about, access and how do we change this narrative. If we believe that being healthy is expensive and time consuming and only for the privileged and only for the lucky, then of course we're not going to succeed, and our doctors, minus you, are telling a lot of us, well, you've been like this, so it's just going to be, like this the rest of your life. And here's a pill to help you manage it. Because clearly there's no solution because you haven't gotten any better, right? Just terrible, terrible advice. And I think that what you were talking about with the kids and what they're eating at swim meets, I was all into sports. I did a little bit of swimming, but I did soccer, softball, volleyball, basketball. And I remember the most natural thing we ever had was orange slices. And then the rest was usually, at the time, we called them granola bars. I guess they're still granola bars now because everyone was like, oh, granola is so good for you, whole grain. And now we've kind of transformed into the protein bar era that's supposed to be healthier for you. And I'm constantly going into stores and looking at them and just comparing how much protein is in this protein bar compared to carbs. I swear, every single time it has more carbs than protein. So it should be called a carb bar, please. Like, we're so misled with this stuff.
So what you described with that person in the beginning of your comments on this was somebody who's given up, and the reason why they've given up is because their concept of weight loss is deprivation, right? So they believe, because previously when they've deprived themselves or when their doctors or trainers told them to deprive themselves, they may have had some temporary weight loss. So their concept of weight loss and health is through deprivation, which is an absolutely terrible viewpoint to start with, and it's completely incorrect. So I should say it's in the narrow time frame correct, but in the long term, certainly absolutely not correct, right? Meaning that you can lose weight over a short period of time, but very quickly your body will compensate and work against you. So what you're describing is a population that's been disenfranchised and has learned helplessness, which is really like, I can't do this. This is not something I can do. And it's a hallmark of addiction, to be honest with you. Um, and it's, I think you labeled absolutely the villains in this, whether they wanted to or not. It's the doctors and the trainers and the dietitians and nutritionists for giving advice that is really not addressing the root causes of hunger, which need to be managed. So, so the problem is in those same people who said hormones had nothing to do with weight loss, those same people who said it's all about calories and budgeting, they're the ones lining up now to, as quickly as possible, prescribe, a hormone to help you lose weight. So I find it incredibly hypocritical that the people who were blowharding budgeting and calories and willpower and deprivation are now the ones, wanting to give a hormone to lose weight when they've failed to acknowledge hormones for over 6 decades. So they've created a population that's just helpless, right, and desperate, right, really, and they don't want to believe that they have agency. And so when you're dealing with this population, it's really important to inspire hope, let them, educate them on the system and their emotional psychological state, right? If you don't believe you can do this, and if you don't understand that you were misled, and if you don't like appropriately get angry at the people that deserve the anger and not getting stuck in self-blame, right? Then you have a chance, right? So I think one of the problems is most people struggle with weight and health overall. They're stuck in self-blame, and they're blaming themselves, and they're internalizing this bad advice, and they don't quite understand that they were set up to fail. And pharma, to their credit, they've made amazing drugs. Like, these drugs that are out there are just amazing, right? And they come with side effects, right? But they really addressed a food addictive, population. And when you take somebody who has diabetes, who has a lot of weight to lose, and you get them to come off that substance, a lot of good can come off from that. But the problem with these drugs is they're just short term, right?
GLP-1s, right?
Yeah,
That's what you're talking about. Yeah.
over the long term, when you stop a GLP-1 because you're too nauseous, or because it's affecting your thyroid, or it's affecting your gut, or your vision is going, right, or you're losing too much muscle, or whatever it is, right, 50% will come off. The rate of weight regain after these drugs is just monstrous. It's double the fastness. You will gain weight at twice the speed of just diet and exercise. So if you just do diet and exercise, and you do all those stupid things like eating salads and doing hours of cardio, which I'm not telling you to do or not do, but if you even bought into those gimmicks, these drugs will cause weight gain twice as fast as even a bad diet and a bad exercise plan. So the problem here is systemic. Docs are lazy. They just want to give a prescription. They are not invested. They don't have an aligned interest with the person in front of them. And so they want to just do what's easiest for them, which is prescribe something and then kick the can down the curb. And I think most people, unfortunately, they're so disenfranchised, so ready to blame themselves, so ready to say, I'm missing something, something's wrong with me, right? That they've fallen right into the sort of, respectably and honestly good medication compared to those that we've had in the past. So, not that I like prescribing it, I don't, and I try to get people off this medication, but this is a system that is designed to help you in the short term, but essentially really just enrich your doctor, because that's, recurrent visits that he's now got you hooked. You're going to see him for follow-ups, and so he gets his insurance, co-pays or whatever. And it benefits pharma, who gets to put you on a chronic medication. And it's just unfortunate. The right way to do this is to acknowledge that our population is really just stuck in self-blame, stuck in the same nonsense approach of restriction as a way of losing weight, and stuck in learned helplessness, not believing that really they can do it, because they don't understand they were giving crap advice from the people who should have known better, which is my profession. So we have to acknowledge, we have to acknowledge that docs will do the easiest thing for them, which is essentially give you a drug that kind of works.
So
Sorry.
Why did you want to become a doctor, and what did you know back then that was motivating you to do what you do? Because I know things have changed since the beginning, but I'm really curious to know what what was your drive to become a doctor when you were however old you were?
Yeah, I can tell you. I was 13 years old and my doctor said you're fat like your family. That was the moment, right? That was the moment where I was like, this, excuse me, I'm a New Yorker. This asshole just made me wait in his office for 2 hours. He could have put a bike in here. He could have put a treadmill here. Instead, what he did was he put me on it, made me wait 2 hours, get on a scale, just to shame me and say you got to lose weight. Like, and I remember what he told me is like you should count your calories. And it's funny. I have a when it comes to numbers, it's like a near photographic memory, right? I could recite, every number. I could tell you that a bag of Doritos is 140 calories per serving. I could tell you that a small apple is 80 calories per serving. A large banana is 120 calories per serving. Like, I could rattle it off at age 13. This calorie knowledge didn't affect me. I was starving, right? My body was completely deprived of nourishment and I was always hungry, right? So I remember at that point, I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. Like, F this guy, So that was pretty much it. I was a smart kid, and I wanted to apply myself. And there's nothing about like a little bit of teenage angst and anger and righteousness to motivate you into your career. And I wanted to beat the genes. That was it. I wanted to beat the genes. The gene where he's like, maybe it's your genetic issue. It's in your family, right? So just wanted to beat the gene, and that's what really motivated me. And then, I think I was motivated by finances, but like I left a financially oriented initial career path. My parents are accountants, and there was like a sort of pathway for me to go that way, and I just was like, I can't do this, right? Like I got to stay to my calling, and this was very clearly a calling. Certainly knew by the age 18, 19 that I was going to be a healer of some kind. And eventually went to medical school and residency, internal medicine residency in a Yale affiliated program, got board certified, then got board certified in obesity medicine. And honestly, all this stuff is like a piece of paper. Most of what I do is just waking people up, like that's it. That's what I do on a systemic basis.
So, how did you wake up? Because in your bio and on your website, I dug through it a little bit. You talked about being a large doctor. And I mean, there's even a photo of you in your coat, in your white coat and stethoscope. And I just wonder, okay, so you go to school, you become a doctor. Were you able to apply what you learned in school to your own health, and did it work initially?
Um, well, I can't knock the fact that they gave me some knowledge, right? So they definitely gave you knowledge, right?
For
I,
sure. Yeah.
I understood, I gained a wealth of data points, right? But they're not good at connecting the dots and like thinking creatively to address a problem, right? So thinking critically to address a problem. I knew early on in my residency that I thought differently, and I thought in systems, and I thought in the exceptions, not the rules, right? And this is different than most of medicine, which is here's the rules, follow the rules. Um, so I think that I gained a lot of knowledge, and what made me want to be different was literally my wife saying, "Go figure this out." That was it. Like, go figure this out. This is why you went into medicine. Go figure it out. Like, you're gonna die. You're gonna die early. You're gonna leave me with 3 kids. You know,
Mm.
like, go figure this out. And that was it. And I went to all the medical textbooks And I was like, okay, if this was pneumonia, what would I do? If this was a skin infection, what would I do? I would look at which drugs work better. So I just started analyzing the data. I'm looking at the data. Like every interventional trial, low carb and diets are doing better. Intermittent fasting does better than continuous feeding. And I'm like, why are we telling people to do anything else if this is always better? And then I go to the observational data of the decades before, and it like tells a different story. And I'm like, oh my God, like I see it now. You know, they got it completely wrong. They were following faulty data. And then when data came around that questioned it, they didn't reevaluate the assumptions, right? And that was a light bulb moment when I was like, they've been working on these assumptions. They don't know. Right? They either don't know, don't care, or are too lazy, or are just lying. And all of those are true, depending on which group you turn to.
And when
Uh,
was this? When you had kind of an aha moment?
yeah, it was, I mean, my wife, this was over 10 years ago, right? She's like, that was the moment. I was like, okay, I'm going to fix this. Right. And then the more you go, I mean, I read that year, I remember 3 textbooks I read on obesity, and maybe a couple thousand papers. And then I listened to I either listened or read, maybe 150 books on diet, like that first year, just everybody. Just want to absorb it all, like hear what everybody's thinking so I don't miss anything. And then I rounded it out with more data. And then once you can assimilate all this data, you see the groupthink, right? Like you see, and if you just ask simple questions, you can, understand how we got here, why, and what to do about it. So losing weight was easy. I mean,
Once
I
you,
should,
yeah,
it
once
was,
you had the information.
yeah, losing that first bit of weight was easy. Maintaining has been hard as hell. I've been very open about that. Up and down, a lot of different things affect it, but losing weight is easy. And then once I, saw the light, I wasn't gonna go be, a doc in the box, right? I was like,
Mhm.
I can't. Like, I'm not meant to, you know, make you come back to a visit just so I could get a copay out of you. I'm not doing that. You know. Yeah. So my journey was like over 10 years old, maybe 11 years old now, and
Was
I'm still.
there a book or a film or a research study that really hit you hard where, maybe you just had the light coming straight down like, oh shit, I can't believe I didn't know this, or I can't believe I was told the opposite. Like, because I've been reading a lot of books lately and some of them are just magical. I really respect a lot of current, um, you know, psychiatrists and MDs who are putting themselves out there and saying, look, I had to change my practice so I could really help and heal people. And so was there a book or a study that really changed you?
I mean, there were too many to name, but all the interventional studies, 6 months, 12 months, Shy in the New England Journal of Medicine, Gardner and JAMA, the A to Z trial, all these initial studies, that just consistently showed Atkins and low carb was better. I mean, that was, the fact that we didn't change drastically after that just shows you how cemented doctors are. And we know this, like, we know doctors, it takes like 10 years to go from the data to then, redoing the textbooks to publishing new textbooks, right? So we know there's a lag. And doctors are slow to change, right? And they're really susceptible to groupthink. You don't need to see anything more than the pandemic response to see how susceptible to groupthink doctors are and how unwilling they are to challenge sort of what they're being told. And I'm not saying that that's always the right way to go about it, right? It's not, there's times where you defer to experience and authority, but by and large, that's how medicine, it's a pyramid, right? You have, when you're an intern, when you're a medical student, you're the lowest on the totem pole. There's the intern above you. When you're an intern, there's a resident above you. When you're a resident, there's the chief resident above you. When you're chief resident, there's the program director, and then there's the department head, and then there's the chief medical officer, and then there's the CMO, right? Like there is this, you have this, and you wouldn't dare make a mistake, otherwise, it's going to be discussed in a hazing round, in a morbidity or mortality round where all the doctors get together and discuss the mistakes that you make. So it is a very, very authority driven profession, and so it stamps out the creativity. It stamps out the creative and critical thinking. The out of the box thinking is really stifled. So those things, Eric Westman's obesity textbook was fantastic. And Eric Westman's trials with Will Yancey, they made data that they really set the stage. They proved some basic facts. These diet interventional trials also proved some facts. And then, my goal has been to add to that. We're showing diabetes reversals of 12 A1C to 6, right? We published that in the literature. We published 1,000 level triglycerides going down to under 200, right? And we published that saying the ADA is wrong about weight loss, saying the NLA is wrong about, high fat diets, right? We published a study showing that low carb and intermittent fasting helps an eating disorder, not worsens, helps binge eating and food addiction, right? And then the paper that's coming out a week from now, I don't know when this will air, but a week from now is on a larger study with 50 patients on their food addiction outcomes. So I've worked insanely hard so that the next generation of, like, I saw Eric Westman's work, Will Yancey's work, the SHI study, the A to Z trial, and I'm busting my butt to put in the literature and weaponizing the literature a little bit. The more you put into the literature, now every doc has to follow that, has to say that. Like, when they get a lawsuit because they didn't help somebody's A1C through diet, when they're at that lawsuit and they say, but doc, why didn't you see this paper that showed, diabetes is reversible? Like, hey, doc, you were recommending a Mediterranean diet, but this was shown to be not as effective. Why did you pick a less effective option for diabetes and blood sugar? So I'm hell-bent now on just putting stuff out into the literature so the next generation of docs, coaches, trainers, they could be like, see, like, look at this study, right? Look at what the Toward Health group put out. The food addiction and binge eating goes down with a restrictive pattern of intermittent fasting. Those symptoms go down, not up, right? So, and that's the study we're published. Earlier this year, we published our average patient will lose 43 pounds and will come off almost 2 medications each, lower their blood pressure 17 points. And that's just the focus of what I'm doing now, is just getting it out there. So when somebody reads that study, they have that aha moment,
Right. Well, I'm really curious, you're talking about these improvements and successes in your patient population. So when you meet with them, you're all 100% virtual, right?
We are a virtual practice. So we have our headquarters here in the New York City area, but we are absolutely a virtual practice, and we have patients in 48 states. Our focus is people who, want to take control of obesity, diabetes, hypertension, metabolic syndrome. We have a GLP off-ramp program, and we have a food addiction recovery program. I mean, and I'm not saying we don't use medications. We have a medical weight loss program where we consider medications, but our culture is very clear. We want to get people off drugs and healthy, and use drugs as a last line, not a first line.
So, as far as how you talk to patients, you're very familiar, as all of us are as patients, that there's very little time. Maybe even in virtual appointments. I don't know what your standard, like your protocol is for checkups or whatever, but I want to know more about rapport building, because as a personal trainer and metabolic health coach, that's like number one first is I got to build rapport with my clients so they can trust me, and I can also understand who they are and why they do what they do. Because if your patients, for example, come to you and you don't know why they're there other than, oh, I want to lose weight, why do they, what do they want in the long-term future and why? Like, what is their why? How do you understand the patient as a human with all these emotional pieces and dynamics of stress and lifestyle and family and work and political things, the state of the world? Like, how do you get to the heart of it? Because you can write a script or you can just say, do this twice a day for 2 weeks. But if there's other external factors that are influencing them, like for me, I always want to know how to support them through those. I don't want to say battlefields, but it's hard sometimes. How do you build that rapport so you can actually support them in their process and not just be that here's a script or here's the rules and just go do it.
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. So I'll give you quick answers. One is you assess. I mean, like this is a highly technical question, so I'm going to just speak very technically. And I don't know if this will resonate with the listener or not, but I'm just going to speak like a doctor for a sec. We assess readiness to change at minute one. We ask what is the goal and why, right? It's not I want to lose weight. Why do you want to lose weight? Why do you care? So besides a validated readiness to change assessment, we're understanding goals and motivation behind those goals. We 100% need to analyze their problem areas, right? That we call them. We call them the five problems: the problem foods, the problem places, the problem people, the problem situations, and the problem times, right? Meaning we need to know if they have a malignant household, which is the number one cause of weight regain. If the household is malignant and there are people that are not eating the same way as you and don't have the same vision for their health as you are pedaling upstream. So part of that assessment will be recruiting loved ones, right? Recruiting loved ones into the health journey, right? And not just communicating to the patient, but also being able to build a wall of support around that patient and their community. We have to face addiction head on. So we have to make it clear that food is a comfort, and we have to reconcile that the only person that can choose and we have to transfer that comfort, right? If we're looking to achieve metabolic health as a goal and weight loss as a goal, we need to develop other coping strategies, and we need to address the underlying stimulus, right? That brings you to food. So it's I want to say it's complex, but it's not. It's actually just giving a shit, right? It's just caring, right? And then in terms of time, we are a very time intensive program. When you sign up, you're onboarded, you meet with a health coach for 30 minutes to understand your family history, to understand your current medications, to understand your current work environment, your current living environment, and what your goals are. Then you meet with a doctor or a PA, and all of your medical issues are sorted out, right? And then you have an hour-long visit with a health coach to go through some of these. We give surveys periodically right? On your mood, on your quality of life, on depression, anxiety, binge eating, food addiction. Um, so we are like nothing you've ever experienced, to be honest. We have, scales that link up directly to our team, blood pressure cuffs that link up directly to our team, ketone meters, and CGMs. And the point of all of these, and we make that clear, is not to wag our finger and shame you when things go the other way. It's to figure out, well, what's going on? Is there stress on you? Is there anything we can do to help? What's going on in your life? It's a way to pierce through and get out of isolation and get into action, right? In a way that you'd expect from a comforting team. And I think, like, how do you establish rapport? By being excellent and being available, right? Like, you have to be excellent and available,
Like
right?
emotionally available?
Emotionally and time. So literally at any moment in time, somebody could say, I need help. And we are there, right? If it's in the middle of the night, somebody's getting back to you first thing in the morning, right? If it's in the middle of the night, we have a hot, like a binge eating relapse line powered by 50 volunteers that will respond.
Wow.
So we are not waiting, right? We are available, and we are emotionally available, right? You are getting a coach and a medical team that understands metabolic health, food addiction, right? And every single person, from our VP of sales to our senior vice president of employee wellness to all of our health coaches, have gone through this journey, and we understand it. So the need for rapport comes from, like, orthorexic dietitians that think they're better than you, right? And not from a team that every day is struggling the same way you are. From the person who knows what it's like when they get on a plane and they can't fit using the seatbelt and they have to ask for an extender, or they can't go to Disney because they don't fit in the carnival rides, or the shame they feel when they walk into their gym because of their body size. So, without even trying, right, because we have a culture and a team, the rapport is, I don't want to say automatic, but like given, right? Our patients are coming here giving it, because they understand our values and they know who we are, right? When
Right.
they when they said, I'm like, you said yourself, you went to my website, you saw a picture of me in a stethoscope and a white coat, and I was very big, right? So you immediately know that I'm emotionally available because I've been through those emotions, right? And I understand them, and I understand how to handle them and how to rise above it just from a picture, right? But then the actuality is we all are trained in this, and I've published on this, um, yeah, I mean, we're all still learning. I don't want to say that, like, but I don't want to sound like we got it all figured out. We're still
Sure.
getting better and learning and getting trained, as a team and individually.
Well, you're evolving, which is something that I don't think many medical professionals were taught to do unless they read a study about it. And even that study is usually controversial, right? So the fact that you and your team are open to your own personal and system evolution, right? Because you're going to make micro adjustments as you learn. Whether the health coach says, "Hey, Tro, try doing this a little bit differently," or if you say to a health coach or whoever on your team, like, "Hey, I've been finding this is happening with internal systems or with patient appointments," and so you guys clearly are a cohesive unit, right? Versus just like, you're the doctor, this is your job, you're the health coach, this is your job, and you don't really communicate in a traditional setting. There's a lot of gaps, right? And I think the wraparound service that you're offering is exactly what most people need, especially when there's so many emotions involved, because there are some folks who will just take that pill or take that prescription or suggestion of like, oh, exercise 5 days a week, eat this 3 times a day, and then they do it and it works, and maybe they stick to it and make adjustments. But I think for most people, we need deeper, more meaningful relationships in rebuilding, in order to rebuild our metabolic health. And I can see that's what you're doing. So
Yeah,
congratulations.
isolation. Thanks. Isolation is a killer. Lack of a community is a killer, and oftentimes there's outright not just a lack of support, but a malfeasance in the home, right? Because you're dealing with an addictive substance, and just because I want to not eat chocolate cake and cereal, now I have to convince 5 other people, right? And now I'm taking away a feel-good hormone for them, and who the hell am I to take away their feel-good hormones? There's an important dynamic here that you need to understand when you're trying to make, when you're trying to make lifestyle change sticky. It's not always easy. And even those people who need medications or want to use them, right, like just right off the bat, like they want it easy, right, they've had enough, right? Those people also know deep down, like, I know I'm going to need to fix these things eventually, right? They know that, and they want it. They want to fix the problems, right? They just don't want to waste time or lose time, right? And they want to come off, and they want a team that's going to help them come off that when they're ready, or at least do their best to get them off these medications, or at the minimum dose they need, and making sure the side effects are appropriately screened for and managed.
Real
So
quick,
it's complicated.
yeah, it's complex, and I want to jump back into what you mentioned, intermittent fasting, and how I'll have to get the link from you about the study. But one of my questions I had set up, excuse me, for today is, metabolic flexibility as an awareness. What is it, and how can intermittent fasting or carbohydrate restriction impact our metabolic flexibility? So for some people, they're like, I don't want to be on a diet for the rest of my life. And you might say, okay, you don't have to be, but let's reset so we can get your metabolic flexibility in a healthy range versus, every time you eat, your blood sugar spikes. We can get you to a point where your body responds in a better way, right? More consistently, to where maybe you don't have to be carnivore for the rest of your life. Maybe eventually you can have a piece of fruit, but you're not eating it 3 times a day, right? So can you comment on metabolic flexibility and how you maybe use that, whether you literally say it to your patients or not, but in your practice, that's something that I really value, is helping people get their metabolic flexibility back.
Yeah, so I think it's really hard, right? I think if certain behaviors are, I think you have 2 types of people, right? If a certain behavior has brought you ill health, there are some people who recognize it and they never want to bring that substance back, but they struggle with the food still speaks to them, right? It still speaks to them. It still calls for them, right? So that's one group, right? And in that group, I'm not sure we're ever really talking about going back, because they don't want to, and neither do you, right? Here's the behaviors. Now, in some people, it's like, look, I acknowledge that food is a pleasure, and I acknowledge that I'm going to have this, right? So I need to find a sustainable way to be able to have this without crushing my health, right? And then you're thinking about a couple of things. You're thinking about, well, how do you become ridiculously healthy so that fruit that you eat, doesn't spike your blood sugar up to 200, Maybe it spikes it up to 150. Maybe it spikes it up to 140, right? And maybe instead of being elevated for 3 hours, you're able to make it elevated for an hour, right? And it could be as simple as, not being restrictive about your mindset around food. It could be as simple as, if you get that thing that you're looking for, that you slow down and you savor every bite. Like, this is a gift. This is a moment. You really be careful with what you're eating and how much, and you go on a walk when it's done. So you're putting that energy straight to use. It could be something simple like that, that addresses your quote unquote metabolic flexibility. For the most part, I think most people, are happy to give up the things that cause them ill health. They just have to see it, right? It's very seldom that that somebody's like, besides that trip to Italy or besides the trip to France, right, where they maybe taste the new cuisine or something, most people don't want to bring it back. But for those that do, I mean, there's so many ways to, if I have one cigar a month, right, like, and that's something that I enjoy and something that I prefer, right, and I'm going to do that, whether, like, no matter what, right? Well, do I make that, 5 cigars because I'm binging cigars because I have a restrictive mindset, and the minute I get a cigar, I'm going to be having 10 of them because I'm battling this thing all the time, and I didn't, in my mind space, just allow myself to enjoy that one cigar? Am I exercising daily so that my heart health, my endothelial function is otherwise optimized, because I know I'm introducing this periodic insult to my endothelium, right? Like, how do I build the life that I'm looking for, and what are my goals? Is my goal to periodically enjoy a cigar? If that is, I got to work with you on that, right? Do I think that that's an ideal? Well, then nobody should kid themselves, right? It's probably not an ideal, right? But that's what you've decided, and you're a grown person, and we'll figure out how to make it the best possible. So if somebody, is not going to carnivore forever or whatever, well, that's okay. Well, write out, what are the things you actually want? What are the amounts that are going to make you happy? Right? Just like, write it out.
Right.
Oh, you know what? I really like my grandma's cookies that she made for me when I was a kid. Okay. Well, what amount makes you happy? Does, shoveling it in because you've been so restrictive about it and just eating it mindlessly till it hurts, is that the goal? Probably not, right? So what's the goal? You probably just want to have it every now and then. Probably just want to enjoy it and actually taste every bite and savor every bite. And then you probably, for the next month, want to eat healthy and not even think about it again, right? So how do we work towards that goal, right? How do we work towards that goal? And I think it's a bout of honesty. Can you achieve that goal? Are you a moderator? Can you achieve that? Can you actually drop the restrictive mindset? Can you actually drop the trauma that leads you to binge? Right? And if you can't, well, then, you can't want two things. You can't want to be cold and hot at the same time. Right? So I think that's a bit of honesty, a bit of heuristics, working through it, and then achieving metabolic flexibility is pretty easy. I mean, if you generally don't eat processed carbs and processed sugar, you generally don't eat processed food, you move your body daily, you get good sleep, absent a few exceptions, you're going to be metabolically flexible.
Yeah.
In a rapid time.
So we had mentioned earlier stress and external factors, whether it's our home environment or work or whatever. And you're a New Yorker, so you may manage stress well, or you just buck up, right? Suck it up, buttercup, and you just move through it. And that's not always the best option. But I'm curious. So I go to New York pretty often. I love the city. I love being there. Don't want to live there, but I love to visit. And so my question is, there's um there's a lot of anxiety, I think, in our culture, whether it's in New York or California or wherever in the country. Let's talk about the US of A. There's a lot of worry and anxiety about a lot of things. And so, back to the question is, how do you create more ease in your life? You have a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah, I'll speak for me personally. If I sleep, if I uh, if I exercise, I'm an amazing human. If I sleep and I exercise, I'm an amazing human. If I sleep, exercise, connect with my family, I'm on like cloud nine, right? If I sleep, exercise, connect with family, I'm on cloud nine. If I sleep, exercise, connect with family, connect with coworkers, and do good work, I feel amazing. Like, what more do I need,
Yeah,
right? So that's how I put myself at ease. Uh, but I realize it's not that easy for most people, and that's not easy either. I have a great support system. Like, the people I work with are amazing. They're all amazing people, and I'm very lucky. My wife is a huge person who puts me at ease. I'm very lucky. My kids are amazing. I'm just lucky. My parents are supportive. Um, yeah, I think you can't discount the village around you.
right.
So, you want to be at ease, find a good village, find a good community. You know, but exercise, get good rest, plus or minus magnesium glycinate at night. You know?
Yeah, that village, that's what we're very much about here at the Magic of Metabolic Health. I actually say that at the end of each episode. Thank you for being part of our village, because this is real. Like, mirror neurons are firing when you get to see people actively pursuing their metabolic health together, right? It's not a vacuum. It's not meant to be miserable and lonely. And maybe we don't all have supportive families, but there are people there. You have friends, you have people like us, you know, um, we have YouTube. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have told me just watching a YouTube video of someone that had a refreshing approach to metabolic health was impactful, and transformed their lives. And then they started their own YouTube channel. And, you have to be careful about picking through the clickbait. But I think that village concept is really a priority for me. That's why I started the podcast. Is I wanted to reach more people. I wanted to provide as much access as possible that's free, and you can listen, watch our show at any time, anywhere on the planet. And you have a podcast too, which I have binge listened to, for lack of a better term. You and Brian have guests on. Sometimes you guys just talk amongst yourselves, like Fumi and I. You guys have a lot of episodes too, way more than we do. But are you still on that train? Are you guys recording or interviewing pretty regularly still?
Yeah, we got to get you on. So
Yeah.
that'll be next. We have 400 and something episodes of the Low Carb MD podcast, and still going. It's great. My partner, Dr. Brian Lenskis, is amazing, and it's just been a wild journey. I never thought, if you told me, you know, 15 million people would listen to you, and you're going to publish more than 10 papers. Like, if you said that 10 years ago, I'd been like, me? No way. So it's been a great journey. I'm hopeful about the future, and connecting with yourself, and I'd love to meet your partner in crime, the other doctor. Maybe we can have you guys on, and it's just been an absolute pleasure to connect with you. And your dad has been super helpful to me, and I just want to give him a bit of gratitude here. He picked up the phone when he didn't have to, so just a big thanks to him as well, and big thanks to you for one. It's not easy. It's courageous to get on there and do something and do a production and put it out there, interview people, put yourself out there. It takes a lot of courage, and just keep going. We were talking into an echo chamber, for so long, and but somebody will listen. It'll hit somebody, and I just keep going. I mean, we need so many of the voices that you're making. When you go on YouTube now, it's funny. I was sitting with my son, just trolling supplement peddlers on YouTube. I'm not on YouTube, on TikTok, right? Like for every one of us, there's somebody out there trying to get somebody on yerba mate, or getting a coupon code to a supplement that's going to cure their Hashimoto's. So keep doing what you're doing, because we're going to need 100,000 coaches and trainers to even make a dent in the chronic disease epidemic we face. So hopefully somebody's listening to your podcast, listening to this, they're inspired to become a coach. They get certified as a personal trainer. They get certified as a metabolic health practitioner. They learn about Joe Niflin, and do some of the things that we've done to just sort of become awake. Because our world.
Yeah, it's a process. I never arrive. I have aha moments, but I never arrive. And that's one thing that I learned in college from a professor of mine. It's about the journey, right? And I try and maintain that in whatever area of my life I'm focusing on, whether it's personal, emotional, physical, spiritual, professional, right? So kind of winding down, I like to close each episode with another question for you. So we're called the Magic of Metabolic Health because Fumi and I believe that it's quite magical to find your metabolic health, to optimize it, to reclaim it. And we've gotten angry in some of the episodes, like just trying to get people to understand that it's not your fault where you're at. You were misinformed. We were all misinformed. We were misled. There were some good intentions to help us, but if you're still suffering, there's hope. Anyone can get help. Anyone can transform. And so this magic that we talk about, I'd like to know, or maybe you could share one piece of magic that can help our listeners improve their metabolic health. And magic, I mean, like, again, there's no silver bullet, but maybe you can share something from your personal life or from your practice that has just been really powerful in helping people transform their metabolic health.
Besides like the BS nutrition advice, which is super easy, to be honest with you, avoid processed carbs and sugar, limit snacking, and eat rich, filling meals. You can decrease your meals down to one meal a day. You can fast longer if you want, if you feel good. Moving your body, like reclaim. It's not a punishment for calories. It's reclaiming your ability to move in space. Get strong, get fit, get faster, jump higher, do things, get up off the seat without, the chair without using your hands, then get up off the floor without using your hands. Reclaim what you've lost. But I think the biggest thing is, before you go into any nutritional journey, just make sure everything is straight upstairs. We have a food addiction quiz on our website. Like, just see if there's something lurking underneath that maybe you don't completely understand, but you kind of know it. You're like, maybe I'm a chocoholic, maybe I'm a breadaholic. Why can't I just stop eating this way? or maybe feel shame and guilt around food, or maybe hide and sneak food from a loved one, just get help from people that 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 understand that that's my advice. Just don't be afraid to get help, from yourself, from Joan Iflin's community, Jen Unwin's community, our community. Yeah, there's a lot out there.
Yeah, so if someone wants to get help from your community, from Toward Health, how do they sign up? Do you have packages? I imagine you don't take insurance. Is it all out of pocket?
Well, luckily, a lot of employers are now paying for us, meaning that like they understand the value and they give it to their employees for free. We have a free app, so it's a Toward Health app. We license it to coaches and trainers, and for super cheap, so they can give it to all their patients and clients. But if you're out there, you can get it for free. If you want to support us and access some of the courses, there's like a really ridiculously cheap option. I don't even know how much it costs now. It's like $15 or $8. I don't even know. And then if you need medical help, and there's so much free on the app, by the way. We have a live, getting started with Metabolic Health course. We have a live fasting course. We have a lot, like we're doing Medical Jeopardy in a week or two. You can come in and just play Medical Jeopardy. We do a lot of just fun and cool stuff. Diabetes Awareness Month is free. It's in November. So there's a lot of free stuff. You want to support us. And if you need expert help, we're like a concierge medical practice through remote, through telemedicine.
One thing that...
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Toward.health,
Toward.health is your website. And people ask me about labs also. Certain situations, they can't get the labs they need. So how does that work?
Yeah, we can get them all their labs and imaging. Pretty soon you will be able to do it right from the website. So go to the website, Toward.health. There's a screening page. And if you needed labs or you needed a heart evaluation, like calcium score, or carotid ultrasound, or CCTA, we have a nationwide program where we're going to, make these accessible to everybody within the month. So look out for that.
Nice. Okay. You're on social media. Where do you like to hang out?
None of them, but at Dr. Tro, at all of them, spelled out DoctorTro. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I see you mostly on Instagram. But yeah, you got lots of nuggets, lots of gems to share. So thank you, Dr. Tro, for being here, for being part of our village. And man, that was such a great conversation. I really appreciate your time. And everybody listening or watching, please leave a comment below. Ask us a question. Follow Dr. Tro. Engage with him. He's a funny guy. He's a very informed guy. Listen to his podcast, lowcarbmd podcast, right? And wow, so here we are again. We did it. And thanks everybody for being part of our village. And we will see you next time. Take care. We're bringing healthy back. Them other bros don't know about the facts.